start with the community colleges support budget.
Debated, or there we go. And thank you, members of the committee, for the time. My name is Jim Haffey. I'm the president at Holmes Community College, and I have the pleasure of also being the chair of the Mississippi Association of Community Colleges, which we consider the greatest association of community colleges in the entire civilized world, and the work that we do. So we all presenting the meat of the presentation today is going to be Dr. Alston Brooks and Dr. Heindel, and then we also have Kel Smith here to help us with any hard questions and talk about the agencies. And I think we have two of our brethren in the audience. We have Dr. Steve Basic from Hines Community College and Dr. Dwayne Middleton from Colin Community College. I don't see anyone else, but it is a pleasure to be here today. We'll try to be brief and allow plenty of time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. We're going to try to go pretty quickly with our comments and then give you all opportunity if you have questions afterward. We'll review our community college budget priorities. And then, but first of all, we want to share with you just a little bit of information about community colleges today and what the community colleges represent, and in terms of just programs and services really, and a little bit of a look of our students. So starting with page number 3, in academic year 2023, the community colleges served approximately 87,000 students. A larger majority of that continues to be university parallel. These are our academic students that are transferring on to places like Mississippi State, Jackson State, University of Mississippi, 49,000 of which did that. Career technical, this is a growing area of our colleges, 17,000, roughly 17,500 students in 23. Dual enrollment, dual credit, another really growing area of our colleges, 18,941, and then non-degree seeking students. And 69%, another statistic, 69% of all of our bachelor's degrees in Mississippi have community college transfer credits, where students have taken community college classes in order to make a portion of that bachelor's degree. Moving on to the next page, in academic year 23, there were 15,637 graduates that earned 18,919 awards. And the awards really came in this way: Associate of Arts degrees, Associate of Applied Science degrees, technical certificates, and career certificates. I just want to mention also in 2020, our community colleges commissioned a study, and we've commissioned that study once again, but we will get that to you in the coming few weeks. But it was an economic impact study. And at that time, 4 years ago, the economic impact study concluded that $2.1 billion is contributed to the state of Mississippi from community colleges in wages and benefits and salaries, $3.9 billion in the state's GDP, $277 million in state and local tax revenue. And that study also concluded that 3 out of 4 students who graduate from a Mississippi community college, they continue to live and work in Mississippi. So 3 out of 4. And then the study also concluded, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Alston Brooks to keep moving forward, but that study also concluded that 4 out of 5 students that were taking non-credit workforce training classes, they also continue to live and work in Mississippi after they received that training. So it was a study that, and I think those numbers are going to just be even better with this next round, and when we get that in the next few weeks, and we'll be happy to share that with you. But Dr. Alston Brooks is going to talk about community college students specifically, and who they are for our colleges and who attend.
Thank you, committee members, for having us today. Again, community college student in Mississippi, what do they look like? They're about 22 years old. Female, 62%. That's an interesting issue. We ask ourselves the question, it's a national problem. Where's the males at? We need males in college. We need males to come through and get credentials. The industry that Dr. Heindel was talking about, the economic development, the people that stay here and fill these jobs at things like the Amazon data center and the aluminum mill that we've been so fortunate that the legislature and economic development communities recruited in to our area in the Golden Triangle. They're looking for not just women, they're looking for men too. They're looking for any skilled worker they can get. So You know, that's a question we ask ourselves about how can we do more to get more men, but 62% of our students are female. 95% of our students are Mississippi residents. And like Dr. Heindel said, we're very proud of that fact. Those students that attend community college stay in Mississippi and live and work and earn a living in a very high percentage rate. And that updated study will be released here next month, and we'll have updated info, but we're proud of the fact that our students are the ones that end up staying in our counties and living and building homes and being productive tax-paying citizens. 63% of our students are full-time students. 54% are in an academic curriculum, 22% are that career tech route. Those are the ones that are preparing to go to work out there in our hospitals and our factories. And our average ACT score is a 19.2. So we see high performance students. Our students are very prepared in a large degree. We've seen a good rebound from COVID. You know, if we look at our head count enrollment back around 21, we had dipped down to about 63,000 students statewide. We're back up to 65,300. So we're continuing to grow. We're adding students. We're very proud of that. We want to continue to find ways to add students, but we're typically dealing with students that are first generation college kids. Their parents probably didn't go to school. Their parents may not even graduated high school. So we invest a lot of the money that we get from the legislature into navigators and counselors and advisors to get those first generation students and really hold their hand and help them get through these first 2 years to get them into the workforce or to get them to the university level. And we know that if we get them for 2 years and get them to the university, that our transfer students graduate at a really high rate, higher than entering freshmen at the university level. So we've got a real jewel of a student, if you will, if we get them through 2 years in the work that we do. But one of the expressions we always use is these students that we are working with are the lower rungs of the socioeconomic threshold, if you will. They're a flat tire away from dropping out. I mean, literally, students, a car breaks down, they can't get to school, they drop out. So we try to do everything we can to help these students. Some of them are full-time workers, some of them are single parents. The average annual tuition, and this goes back to what Dr. Happy was saying, we do think we've got the greatest system in the United States of America. We're proud of that fact. Would not have the best system in America if it wasn't for the Mississippi legislature. We're deeply rooted in our state and have long-term legislative and county support. And because of that, we've been able to keep our tuition and fees really low. Our tuition and fees for FY25 were only $3,950. $3,950. Think about the rate of return a student gets. Spend $8,000 at a community college. 5 years down the road, you're working in Mississippi making a really handsome wage somewhere. That's a good rate of return. In FY 2000, 55.8% of our overall revenue came in the form of state support. 17.8% of our overall revenue came in the form of tuition and fees. Now, FY24, state support comprised 38.2% of our overall revenue. So that's down 17% in state support and 30% of our overall revenues in the form of tuition and fees. So we've done I think a monumental task of keeping tuition low, but I don't know how long we can continue to keep it as low as we are when that ratio of state support continues to go down. And we're going to do all we can, but I just want the legislative members to be cognizant of that. The state support is so important at controlling tuition, keeping tuition low.
Y'all, as we move on and look at what was appropriated this past year, overall, $305 million to the community colleges. And we want to again say to you, thank you for your continued support, for your continued friendship. And that was really broken out in a few different ways. General funds, $230 million, $69 million in education enhancement funds, $6 million in capital expense funds. And then we were also allocated, I know this is not an appropriation amount necessarily, but it has been coming in the form of capital expense funds. And that's gone a long way for our community colleges to help us maintain, repair our facilities, renovate our facilities, and also add on to where we need to. And we've been seeing an increase in needing to add on, particularly in career technical and health science programming. And so that's where many of you who have, visited our colleges and our campuses, and you see that happening as well. But overall, again, like I say, $305 million. And thank you all again for your continued support. Now, we want to move on. We have two requests. They're pretty simple in terms of what they are, one of which is operations, and the second is in facilities. And so Dr. Alsobrooks will give a little bit more detail about just the support of our operations.
Yeah, if you take a look at this sheet that's got the MAC logo on top and look at our request for this year, we're asked often of this list, what's most important to you at your school? And it's always our people. We want to be able to pay our people a competitive wage. And we know the wage pressure around the country and trying to keep up, help our faculty members and our staff keep up. So we're asking for a 5% salary improvement. I want to talk about salaries for a moment. If we look at the Southern Regional Education Board, which is kind of loosely, you think about the Southeastern Conference, that's kind of the states that are part of SREB. Our average salary, most recent data was $51,300 for Mississippi. SREB states was $56,300. So we're about $5,000 a year less than our neighboring states in the Southeast. And then nationwide, the salary for community college faculty, $67,300. So we're a little further back behind that, but we want to try to keep up with the SREB states. And then if we look at what's going on within our state, we had fallen behind the K through 12s, and we've caught up thanks to you and the support that you've made available. We've caught up. We're about tied with K through 12. We'd really like to be able to pay our faculty a little more than K through 12 and get closer to that old midpoint we talked about in years past. But we'd like to be a little ahead of K through 12 if we can. Right now, we're about even, but it's always our number one request is trying to support our people. We're a place of people, teaching people. And so that 5% request in salary equates to $23 million. Then we talk about our operations, the cost of insurance, the cost of doing business. There is a sheet that I think we made available that Heinz put together on the back of this that gets really specific about some of the increases in insurance and just the cost of doing the utilities, the cost of doing business. And if you look at B there, $14 million, we're just trying to keep up with the cost of the electricity bill and the drastic increases in insurance costs around the state. And that's what that $14 million equates to. We're trying to keep up with the cost of just running, keeping our doors open and paying the vendors. And then last but not least, obviously, is the CTE Advantage program. That has been such an important program that you have made available over the last few years. $5 million a year in support has been split by a formula across the community colleges. And Ginger's handing that out. I'm sorry, I thought we had a copy of it already that speaks specific to Heinz Community College. And thanks to Dr. Basic and his team for putting that information together. And he may want to speak more about that later, but gives you some real specifics about why we're asking for what we're asking for in terms of the impact of a specific college. But the CT Advantage program, $5 million a year. We've done things like we've added programs in electrical. We've added construction technology, which has been very timely with the new industrial economic development projects been released. They're all begging for construction workers. We've doubled the size of our nursing program and added capacity of our practical nursing program. So that investment has given us capital to add new programs and expand existing high demand programs. And we're very grateful for that $5 million. That has really, really gone a long way for all 15 colleges. Dr. Heindel's going to talk a bit about capital fund.
And you really, that sheet that Heinz Community College is just a couple of examples of some of these costs that continue to rise. And so anyway, that's just giving you some examples. Each college has examples similar to that, but wanted you all to have that. Dr. Basic had that prepared and we used it yesterday. Wanted you all to see it today as well. Total requests though on request number one is 42 million, like Dr. Alsobrooks said. And then facilities continues to be an important piece to providing those facilities for the programs and services that all of our 15 colleges offer. Last year was $56 million in terms of facilities, repairs, renovations, funds that came to our community colleges, and it came in the way of our bond formula. We have a formula with our community colleges, and it's half even and half based on enrollment. And so anyway, that's how those funds were allocated last year. We would most likely move forward with that. We also have another formula that we use from time to time called the repair and renovation formula. That's a little bit different, but pretty close to the same in terms of dollars. And this year it continues to, we are requesting, the 15 colleges are requesting $100 million for facilities. And those needs continue to just to move forward in terms of need. I want to share with you all, though, that we in the room this afternoon, I saw Dr. Ashley, Dr. Taylor with Accelerate Mississippi, and we've got an amazing leader with our community college board in Kel Smith. And Kel's with us this afternoon, of course, and he's going to share with you the appropriations request from the community college board side. As you all know, the Mississippi Community College Board is a coordinating body that works very well with our 15 community colleges and our boards of trustees. But at the helm of that is Mr. Kelsman, does an amazing job. He and his team do a great job working with us. I'll turn it over to him now to share a little bit more information.
Thank you, Dr. Heindel, and thank you, members of the committee, for allowing me to take just a couple of minutes to talk about our agency. We do have a fantastic team that works day in and day out to help ensure that the colleges have the resources and tools necessary to educate and train their students. As y'all know, community colleges are incredibly vital to the state's economy, whether it's traditional academic courses, career tech, workforce, or adult education. Our office is the State Adult Education Office. Y'all may or may not know that we have about 300,000 Mississippians without a high school diploma. And those individuals are oftentimes caught in a circle of poverty, generational poverty. And so I'm incredibly proud of the work that our office does and alongside the colleges and some school districts. Last year, we issued about 1,500 high school equivalencies. Now, that's not enough, but we're trying to increase those numbers so that we can get those folks into the workforce and into high-paying, high-skilled jobs. Some other things that we do that I'm proud of, our curriculum division works with business and industry and career tech programs to make sure that programs and courses that are offered in career tech programs align with what's needed in the workforce. You know, the last thing we want to do is for a student to go through a career tech program, become hired, and then not have the skills needed. So last year, in partnership with business and industry, we either wrote or revised 24 curriculums. I think that's incredibly important. We work closely with the colleges on the virtual community college aspect. We provide consortium purchase support, saving the state hundreds of thousands of dollars in purchases for that. That's online learning in 2025 is incredibly important in Mississippi and around the region. I want to talk about our budget for half a second. We are asking for level funding as we typically do. This is my fourth year to be in the either interim role or the executive director role. And every time I've come up, I've asked for level funding. So thank y'all for typically providing that for us. In FY26, that'd be about $6.6 million in general funds and EEF. If you have a budget sheet in front of you, you may see that we are, I think, in line for a significant decrease. Y'all may or may not know that the past couple of years, y'all have inserted capital projects into our agency budget that we push out to identified school districts and community colleges. So that's where that decrease is coming from. We're happy to continue to provide that help and support. I'm glad that y'all utilize us to get those funds out as quickly and efficiently as possible. So I just want to thank y'all for allowing us to come and talk about our needs for a minute. And again, thank y'all for the support y'all provided both to the agency and to the colleges in the past. I'll turn it over to Dr. Happy.
We're here to answer any and all easy questions that you guys may have.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee members? Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here. You know, it's been a pleasure to work with many of you, you know, back through the COVID years, you know, and I will say that just as a comment, I think our community colleges, maybe above many segments of the state, made the best of a bad situation. And I think we've had some significant improvements in the community college because we were able to leverage and use some of the ARPA money in effective ways and create new programs that I think subcommittee chairman and chairman, I think we're all equally proud of. Also, just in looking at your budget, one thing that I find very refreshing is that as we continue to look across the state for areas where agencies and other groups can partner together to come up with a needs-based model so that we best leverage and move dollars where they should and could be used the best. It just makes me happy to see that you oppose individual college project plans on capital improvements and want to have an allocation model that actually is consistent with, the 16 of you working together to, kind of come up with, the areas that need the changes in the best way, and so we've done that. I know the chairman's worked very hard on this, whether it's in, in our roads and bridges or, everything to some things we're also, hopefully going to be looking at this year, and I just find that refreshing. And, if I'm still on this committee for the next couple of years, that's the kind of thing you can put on this sheet that makes me very happy, so
I
thank you
think
for
we're
your
one of the
work.
few states where all 15 of us make a conscious effort to spend almost an entire day every month coming together and working out our differences where we can, sometimes behind closed doors, we'll fight and fuss a little bit, but we try to be unified when we come out. And if we didn't meet so often, I don't think we would have the system that we do. And I don't think that's very common in other states.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. But we do appreciate the work y'all been doing. I am a non-traditional community college graduate. I left in fact, during our session, I went to Hands from 4 to 11 at night, studying automobile collision repair technology. And because of what I learned there, I can't go to English if I'm defeated and do some welding. Being employed by body shop. So I appreciate the work y'all done. And also by going out, I was able to look at the students. A lot of them are working, a lot of them are young, but they have one goal in mind to better improve their lot in life so they can become self-sufficient. So I was able to learn from the students and also see the needs of a Hines Community College, of the colleges. So I appreciate the work y'all doing, and y'all been very good steward of the resources y'all been receiving from the state. Appreciate your work. Any further questions from my committee members? We appreciate you. We do what we can.
We thank y'all for your time.
Thank y'all.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Employment security, Department of Employment Security. No, we're looking for Department of Employment Security is next.
I've been thinking sometimes, I like working with cars and I started like to make a study on. It's gonna fit in it. I like it. Go get your car. It's like you get any. Lately, or regulator, either place or place that. Get it done.
It is.
You actually work on the car?
When I have time. When I have time. Okay. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, yeah.
Thank you all. Good to see you.
Okay, we're gonna get ready for the Department of Employment Security. Thank you. Hey, how you doing? Fine, thank you. Courtney, yes. So nice meeting you, Courtney. Okay, call to order. We're back in order. Now we're gonna hear from the Department of Employment Security. Well, since you spoke first, we'll let you go first. How about that?
Chairman, committee members, thank you for allowing MDES to represent our budget requests today in the appropriation committees. I am Bill Ashley, the Executive Director of the Mississippi Department of Employment Security as of April. I'm joined by several MDES teammate members today as well. Guy Martin, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Jason Pope, Deputy Executive Director of Workforce Programs and Services, Tyler Birch, Controller, Jay Atkinson, Business Manager, Vincent Steiner, Accelerate Mississippi Fiscal Manager. The handout I have provided today has 5 columns. You'll see the FY 2025 MDES approved budget, FY 26 original request, FY 26 elbow recommendation, FY 26 MDES revised request, which is different than elbow's recommendation. And you also see the MDES revised request as well. The only difference being between the FY 26 elbow recommendation and the highlighted column of FY 26 is a request for a dollar amount of $5 million for salaries and fringe benefits and 40 positions. This is the first time I believe in 92 years we may have asked for a direct appropriation. So we'll bear with me as I go through this. MDES is also requesting budgetary authority for $141.7 million and to retain the 493 positions that were appropriated for the agency in FY 25. This request of $141,737,794 includes $1.4 million for the state longitudinal data system, $1.2 million for fiscal support of Accelerate Mississippi, and $5 million for talent development specialists for MDES. MDES is requesting an increase of $800,000 for fiscal support of Accelerate Mississippi, and this is based on the elbow recommendation for Accelerate Mississippi, as they potentially will receive $40.2 million. $40.2 million. MDES is requesting $1.2 million, or roughly 3%, to support Accelerate in our role as their fiscal agent. MDES is a special agency fund supported by federal funds. Wagner Pizer, the federal funding for employment service, has slowly decreased over the last decade while the cost of doing business continues to rise. The Wagner Pizer Act of 1933 established a national employment system, created a network of public employment offices called the United States Employment Service, or American Job Centers. And the goal for this is to improve the labor market by connecting job seekers with employers. In Mississippi, we market American Job Centers as WIN Job Centers. WIN Job Centers. I'm sure y'all seen that. Wagner Pizer Employment Services help prepare job seekers and employers for the next step after education and workforce development programs. The job search by the seeker and the talent search by the employer. MDES does this by assisting job seekers with job searches and placement assistance, information on and referral to training, access to job openings, resume assistance, and access to office equipment. MDES also assists employers with job vacancy recruitment, screening, training through training partners, and labor market information on wages and employment trends. The demand for labor is expected to grow in Mississippi, given the announced capital investments and expected jobs to be created because of those investments. Case in point, FY20 to FY24, the Mississippi Development Authority announced $20.2 billion in expected capital investment that is expected to create over 22,000 jobs. As of December 20th, 2024, the Bureau of Economic Analysis announced that in the third quarter of 2024, that gross domestic product, or GDP, for the nation grew at an annual rate of 3.1%. In Mississippi, our GDP grew 5.1%, which makes us the third hottest economy in the United States measured by GDP percent growth, leaving 47 other states in the dust. GDP is the total value of all goods and services produced in an economy, and the economy I'm referring to is Mississippi. Also, a derivative of this, in the third quarter of 2024, current dollar personal income increased 3.2% at an annual rate for the entire country. Mississippi, however, had a personal income growth rate of 4.8%, which places Mississippi as the fourth state in the country for percent increase in personal income. In a most recent announcement in November 2024, Mississippi is investing $110 million toward economic development sites for future development, infrastructure upgrades, workforce development, tourism, and conservation efforts. This is in addition to the legislature funding multiple years of site development work at MDE's request. The site development programs, the additional infrastructure investments, all are laying the groundwork for future private investments that will lead to job growth. This positions MDES, Mississippi State Workforce Agency, to further support economic development through its network of WIN job centers and the labor exchange platform that we call Mississippi Works. These WIN job centers are in most of the counties where these critical investments are being made. There are 25 counties that have 32 of Mississippi's top publicly owned industrial sites. There are WIN job centers in 19 of the counties with an MDA select site. There are WIN job centers in 19 of the counties with an MDA select site. These announced investments represent significant quote unquote actions, or what I refer to as demand signals, supported by evidence from the BEA. These actions will inevitably trigger corresponding reactions or supply responses. Specifically, the increased demand for labor, coupled with rising wages from business and industry, will motivate more Mississippi job seekers to enter the workforce. As a result, the demand for MDES's Wagner-Pizer labor exchange services, also known as employment service, is expected to grow significantly. We wish to continue the success as documented in the WIOA performance data for Wagner-Pizer comparing Mississippi to the rest of the country. In program year 2022, Mississippi was the #1 state in the nation in both the second and fourth quarters of retention as it relates to the employment rate of individuals who use Wagner-Pizer services, respectively. 80.4% at the second quarter of 2022 and 78.8% in the fourth quarter of 2022, again, which led the nation in both categories. But we're retaining workers, they're staying here longer as it relates to the Wagner-Pizer data. For the nation as a whole, 68.2% for the second quarter and 67.2% for the fourth quarter. And again, we are significantly higher than that. Further, on July 8th, 2024, in a workforce development brief from the State Workforce Investment Board Chairman, or SWIB Board Chairman, the labor force participation rate was identified as an area of improvement. Specifically included in the chair of the SWIB Board's brief was the following quote, and I quote, "As policymakers continue to look at the labor force participation rate, here are a few thoughts. MDES deals with the unemployed population and is entirely funded through DOL dollars. When policymakers assess the adequacy of current programs, I expect their findings will be, number one, that programs are inadequate, and number two, they're in need of reform. Again, this is the SWIB board chairman saying this. The strings that come attached with DOL dollars decreases the efficacy of the funds. To do this well would require a new design to be carefully considered, staffed with talented people, and probably supplemented with state funds. A cost in this that is often overlooked is outreach. The money, manpower, and effective outreach required to reach hundreds of thousands of Mississippians in hopes of getting a small percentage of them to walk through a door is significant. The state can currently reach the unemployed through text, email, and phone at a low cost, but that's ineffective. Just as in selling good career paths, recruiting people into work would need to be a giant marketing effort and carefully designed and measured. Added training is another added cost, unquote, SWIB board chair. Given these comments from the SWIB board chair and the announced investment activity in the past 4 years throughout the state, coupled with revelations from the legislature's labor force participation study group that has highlighted Mississippi's low labor force participation rate, it is both timely and strategic. It is both timely and strategic to request additional funding. We are not alone. According to the National Association of State Workforce Agencies, or NASWA, which we're a member, in fiscal years 2020 and 2021, states across the country added state general fund appropriations in the amount of $24.2 million and $7 million, respectively, for a total of $103.9 million in supplemental funding for employment service or ES activities that are considered Wagner-Pizer. This is from the latest survey, so there's a lag. So this is not published. As executive director of MDES, it is my intention to be proactive as opposed to reactive. I am planning for success, and I must ensure that I have the capacity to deal with potential significant increases in demand for MDES employment services in both our digital delivery format on the Mississippi Works platform and our physical locations in the WIN job centers throughout the state. Again, 19 counties with MDA select sites. We're putting significant investment in, so that is very important to be, again, proactive versus reactive. This funding would complement the career initiatives or career coach initiatives, supported by the legislature at the request of Accelerate Mississippi and local workforce development areas over the past several years. Complement, not complicate. MDES is designed to equip Mississippi employers with the tools to find and hire skilled workers while also preparing individuals to successfully enter the workforce. This is where the talent development specialist would come into play. With a $5 million state appropriation, MDES proposes establishing a new operational standard for employment services by deploying 40 talent development specialists. These specialists are essentially adult career coaches, not in Accelerate's lane, not the local PDD's lane. These are adults. This is the population we're currently working with as they walk into the WIN Job Center. So these specialists, essentially adult career coaches, will build upon and extend the ongoing efforts of Accelerate Mississippi and local workforce development area career coaches, focusing on relationship building, both with the job seekers and employers, career exploration, and effective job matching for post-high school adults. This initiative directly aligns with the needs of business and industry in Mississippi, thus ensuring that MDES continues to meet workforce demands with innovative and responsive solutions. This funding is not just a request, but a needed proactive step to capitalize on economic momentum and address workforce challenges head on. By investing in MDES, the legislature will empower us to support Mississippi's businesses, enhance labor market participation, and secure a prosperous future for all Mississippians. We urge your support to ensure MDES remains a cornerstone of Mississippi's economic success. Thank you. If you have questions, I have my team available.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Parker.
Thank you. And I'll echo some of the comments I made earlier with community colleges. Um, I do think MDS, after everything was done, did a very good job of coming out of the COVID situation. We came out of that, I think, with a very vibrant or well-funded unemployment trust fund. I know at the last meeting, I know the trust fund balance was a little north of 700 million, which has allowed us to keep our general experience and employer contribution experience ratings, frozen, as we did statutorily a few years ago. Can you tell us where we stand on that balance right now?
I can give, do you have a,
I do have that number. The balance as of yesterday was $718,288,544. So
Okay, so it's kind of staying kind of flat, and that is in a trust fund that, how is that trust fund set? Is that something set through federal government regulations? Is it something that we have access to as a state, as far as interest bearing or other things? How does it work as far as us using that balance that sits there for the benefit of the state?
So that particular balance is only to benefits for claimants who are lost their job through no fault of their own. So in relation to, does the state have the autonomy to take the money? The answer would be no, because the federal government, kind of controls that. But the money that goes in that fund, of course, is all distributed by the employers of the state of Mississippi. I do want to point that out, but it is designed for a mechanism to support people in Mississippi who lose their job through no fault of their own.
But is it an interest-bearing account?
Yes,
Yes.
so I will
And
say.
and the interest pours back into that account,
That is correct.
and help sustain it. Do you know what type of interest we're getting on that account?
2023, the last time I checked, that's the last number I have, is a little north of $15 million. So just an interest alone in 2023, $15 million.
That's
Yeah.
what's kept the fund going
That's
up,
pushing
right?
everything right
Because
now. That's funded it all.
that's
basically,
right,
As far as
that's right.
accelerate, SWIB and activities through WET.
Right, because those kind of dollars right now, I think the chairman would agree, are dollars we spend a lot of time looking at to try to find a way to use those. But those are not something that, through the WEO regulations and other regulations that are out there, they're much like other TANF dollars or other things like that sit in an account where, even though we have a large balance, we don't get any benefit from the interest return on that as far as other program availability.
That's correct.
And then, you mentioned the adult kind of movement on the lose my train of thought here.
Career coach.
On the career coaches, I'm sorry. One thing we did on that when we set that up was we wanted to make sure that Accelerate was strategically taking the lead on most entities that involved that arena. And what I'm hearing, if I understand correctly, Director, is that MDES would like to run the adult career coach program outside of Accelerate. And I know, your funneling and, how there's the flow through and how you partner and you work together. But who would be the lead on that program? Would it be MDES or would it be?
Essentially, we're talking about Wagner Pizer. Wagner Pizer is around 5 million. What's my exact number, guy?
It's a little over 5 million.
A year. So essentially what we're proposing is to supplement that through state general funds. That is what I was referring to when I think it's 103.7 or 103.9 million. Other states have done this because that dollar stayed flat and its costs have increased. Now, by statute, by WIOA, you can't operate any of the WIOA programs alone without Wagner Pizer. So again, Wagner Pizer is that very end. That's at the end of the education and the end of the workforce program. It's the part about we got to get a job. Okay.
Right.
So again, we have, because it's mandatory and it's been around since 1933, a lot of things get attached to it. For example, I have a particular, email in my email box from DOL about a particular position. And of course, there's a rule that says we now have to elevate that position from basically a $40,000 position to a $100,000 position. Okay. But the problem is they didn't give us any more money. So everything kind of attaches to Wagner Pizer, and that old gal right there is kind of stretched thin when you start talking about cost. And now we're expecting a lot of more, a lot of more business walking through the door. Again, as far as when job center locations, that's determined by your local workforce development area, as it relates to how many dollars they have in WIOA. And then we just found out that, again, WIOA top line cut another $2.8 million. Okay, so that's coming up for the next fiscal year. So we've looked at this from the standpoint of the programs that are going to touch people in the communities in which we all live. This is what we've come up with. And I know this is, since April, we've been talking about, several options for participation rate and some other things. And I know that committee, and I got to testify first to that committee in this room. So we're looking again to be proactive based on the fact that we're going to have folks that are looking. I know even at the location at Echelon at the Kirksey building, I was walking in one day and a 61-year-old man walked up to me and said, "Look, I was looking for the Wynn Job Center, but it moved." I mean, he was looking for something that he saw 10 years ago. So he comes to our office and we took the claim in the lobby.
Right.
That being said, there's still a lot of walk-in activity, but again, with Mississippi Works and some other tools we do have a platform for digital delivery, but I'm concerned about that only. I'm concerned, and basically what I'm looking for is to create a SWAT team, if you will, a cadre of talent development specialists that are within the Wynn Job Centers, either regionally or in individual centers, depends on what we can do with it. We're talking about someone that's going to be above what the SWIB board chairman was discussing in his comments back at his, I think it was his update last July.
Yeah. And just for your knowledge on it, I served on the SWIB board for several years when we reconstituted it, and so I'm very familiar with the comments and the things that come down from that. I just want to be sure that we're putting our dollars in the correct location. And, one of the reasons we set up the Office of Workforce Development was to decrease redundancies in government.
Yes.
So we looked at every bit of workforce dollars flowing into the state, and we tried over a period of years to put those under the purview of Office of Workforce Development. And so just as I listen to this, I want to be sure that we don't start moving into a situation where we then are moving the authority from that away from the intended goal of setting up Office of Workforce Development, when and why we did. And again, that was before, your time in this role. That was back in, Jackie's time and Robin's time, but it's something I do want to, and I'm not familiar with the regulations you're discussing that influence WIOA at the end. But it's been a little while since I've thought about that. So I would like to get a little more information on that and just to have a better understanding, as we discuss this more.
So
One of the observations, and I've observed, I know looking at, there's three entities we're talking about too, in this continuum. The demand side, that's again, MDA, business and industry, existing industries, as well as recruiting outside the state. So that's the demand side. So what I'm looking for is a way to make sure that I can take care of the demand side when people are looking for these employment opportunities. When you start talking about us, we're the state workforce agency since 1933. And based on Wagner Pizer, that's what establishes that. So essentially that is, we hold 1.5 million people in the Mississippi Works data set. And essentially we're the supply side. Now Accelerate, based on 2020, and I guess it was Senate Bill 2564, there are three things that came out of that. They're the strategic entity, again, overarching strategy of workforce development throughout the state.
You realize I wrote that bill.
I know, you're
So-
top left. And then I know looking too, you had a strong, the coordinating function, and again, along with the training partners of community colleges, they're the primary training entity. So we work really well together. So yes, we are making sure that we're within the intent of the parameters. I just know that we're going to see an insatiable demand. Again, I want to be proactive. I don't want to come begging saying I do have pictures of Wynn Job Centers with a crowd of people in there, and it's not for UI. Our unemployment rate is 2.9%. And it's also, with the lowest numbers over the past several months that we've ever had that have been unemployed in Mississippi. So I'm planning for success. So I think a famous politician one time said that it's not time to work on the roof during the rain. So I want to make sure, much like Noah, that we're ready for when the rains come.
Right. But it is time to look for the leaks when the rain's going on.
Oh, yes.
So we try to do both in this building, but thank you.
So
Thank you.
Senator Parker, I just want to point out that in working with Accelerate, so make it real simple for me. is she's hyper-focused on finding people, make sure they're trained. We're looking to be more hyper-focused on what is that employer and ensuring that we're in between and helping accelerate. And like our discussions with Courtney on this is that we're helping to make sure we're supplying those employers on the outcome end of that, finding that exact job. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Robinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank y'all for being here today and your great report. I worked with industry for a little over 40 years and had the opportunity to use the Win Job Centers with my company. And I know we're in a much different world now with technology and connectivity and cloud and all the things I probably don't even know about that are out there. You'd mentioned that you had people out the door at some of the job centers waiting to be seen or taken
Yes.
care of. My question to you would be, is there any way that we could move those requests around to maybe some of the centers that aren't so busy at a particular time? I don't know how to go about doing that, but I know it's probably possible to do something like that, if that's even reasonable to consider.
Yes, anybody can self-serve
Okay.
online.
Okay.
So that's both on the employer side as well as employee side.
Right.
So Mississippi Works is the tool I was referencing a while ago.
Oh, okay.
So Mississippi Works is it's a bit confusing because we have that as a funding mechanism for economic development projects for acute workforce training.
Yeah, we use that too.
Yes. So
We also use Georgia Quick Start and Texas and North
Yes.
Carolina. We operated in 5 states across the Southeast.
So as far as the labor exchange mechanism, again, it's based on proximity. I know
Sure.
one of our local workforce development areas had to because of funding cuts through WIOA, had to part ways with numerous locations.
Mhm.
So we're already doing that. We are already working to make sure that if there's, of course, we have part-time centers that are not always open. So we're juggling that demand based on that. But again, Mississippi, as we all know, 82 counties, very large geography. Went into the others about 6.5 hours, depends on how fast you drive. So I don't want to incriminate myself. Sometimes I make it faster than 6. So, but I understand that, and we are balancing the load, if you will, as we are. One of the good things, our unemployment rate is 2.9%. So when you start looking at our federal programs that we're discussing here, WIOA specifically, to some degree, other states have higher. So it's formulaic in which the funds move. And again, we've been very prosperous based on our statistics. And of course, we've seen these cuts come over the past several years.
Well, thank you for your work, and let's get people to work quickly as we can. We sure do need them.
More is better, less is not.
Any other questions? Senator Williams?
I'm sorry, I know we're getting long-winded here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. Appreciate it. You talked about communication enhancements and some different digital variations from a technology perspective. What all are you doing? What are you looking at and implementing, and how are you kind of vetting that process as you go through it to find, the best for your space?
Well, again, as far as WIOA goes, let's talk about that. So 60 to
As far as what?
as far as WIOA goes, 60 to 85% of the funding is going to be determined from the local level. Now, to answer your question, the local workforce development areas this past summer were given essentially guidance from SWIB to discuss making sure that we can use technology, we can use digital assets and work with digital services. So we've been discussing this for quite some time. So for us, we've talked about kiosks. We've talked about having semi-manned kiosks. We talked about having better intakes with kiosks on the door when you go to a Win Job Center. We're also in the major website overhaul now as well. I know I don't want to steal from Courtney, but we're also working on talent solutions as far as having we'll have all the job openings that relate to what Accelerate's doing in partnership with MDA to essentially put in all the data in our massive data lake, which I call Mississippi Works, or which we call Mississippi Works. And then from that, it just goes out in a different website, different marketing tools that Courtney can probably elaborate more on. So basically, we're working already in tandem as well, again, to avoid duplication. But the big thing is better utilizing people and technology in the right, I guess, the right solution for the right time.
I mean, are you doing that internally as far as, there's a lot of guys selling widgets out there right now to figure out what the best fit for you and to be able to deliver and deploy what your service is. I'm just trying to see the mechanism of how you guys are doing it. Are you doing it completely internally? And I may have misunderstood, like, are you allowing the locals to do that? Or are you employing consultants or exactly how do you do that?
As far as technology
The
implementation.
technology, understanding what you need and trying to vet what the best proper, procedure is with it.
Well, yeah, you have a good question. I know basically we're talking about, again, when I say kiosk, we're talking about instead of having a live person.
I understand what a kiosk
Yeah.
is.
So it's having a location for that, but we have.
Yeah, but what made you come to the conclusion that that was the way to do this? Is that,
Well,
did
we're-
you go to
we're
industry?
still- Well, some of these WIOA cuts, we're still looking for monies to make pivots. And we are looking to do more digital services. That's a.
No, no, I
fact. So-
completely understand that. If you've got an ask for technology, you're going to come before us and say, okay, I need 3 million, 4 million. What brings you to come to us and ask for that? What is your procedure to do that? And again, this may be a sidebar conversation that we don't do here, but just trying to understand that we're doing the best that we can, the smartest way we can as we look at the technologies that are out there as we implement them throughout our agencies.
Well, I know with our current vendor for UI, they're multifaceted. So they have a proposal that relates to how we would do this career coaching. I do have a model I can show you as far as what we're proposing
Okay, no,
to do.
you just answered my question. I think so.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Senator Hobson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill, you referenced some statistics I'd heard about the GDP growth and the personal income growth, which is great news for Mississippi, that we seem to be on the right track with production and personal growth. And you mentioned something about the retention of employees in the second and fourth quarters, or 2 out of the 4 quarters. Was that last year?
Yes,
And
what
we
that is. So if you've received a Wagner Pizer service, for example, and of course, this is reported through the WIOA website, WIOA by the numbers. Okay, so it's looking at, and again, this data set is going to have a rolling cohort, if you will, but around 38,000 people got served in program year 2022. And between 24,000 or so of those people were still retained at the second quarter of 2020 to the program year. So the program year starts July 1 of the year. Okay. So 6 months later, the previous cohort, about 24,000 people, were retained at the 6-month window. Now we know this because every 3 months we can go and look at their UI wages. So we know that's an actual. So that we know that they're there based on that window. Then again, a different cohort from previous year served, which will be the 4th quarter cohort, will be another 20 some odd thousand people that are still retained. Okay, so again, when you look at retention rates, I could think my hypothesis that, labor got tight in program 2022. So that was a long time ago. That's back during, almost coming out of COVID or in COVID. So, whenever you have a resource that's very scarce like that, everybody's going to hang on to it. Okay. So that was something that was very pleasant to see. But again, they had a Wagner Pizer service. For example, I went and I test all my services.
Yeah, we can talk about that later because I know we've got other subcommittee hearings, but I just wanted to make sure I had the right statistics that at the end of the 22-23 year that we were number 1 in the nation for 2 out of the 4 quarters in retention on those employees, correct?
Yes, and those are the persons we touched or people we touched.
All right. Yeah, people you touch, obviously. And then the other one was, you said, and I wanted to know the time frame for the 22,000 new jobs. What's the time frame on that? And second part is, what's the net number, if you will, if you keep up with that?
That's during my time at MDA. Then I also just looked at their annual report and summed that up. So again, that's the initial jobs that are now. So when you start talking about a business, as we know this, they'll have a planned investment number.
Yeah.
Have an announcement.
What period of time are we talking about? Just so I have my statistics and facts right.
Fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2024. And I referenced the MDA website for those reports.
Okay. And do we have a net number? That's probably a gross number, I would assume.
Those are what are announced. Again, I don't know what they've actually done.
Okay.
All those projects are in various sundry stages of development. So again, that's what, the main thing is I want to get more people, more businesses that are using our services. And of course, those are market targets. We're going to go after those companies and make sure that they have their employees.
And does that, I'm assuming that compares favorably with the rest of the nation based on the size of our state when you look at the population of our state. I would assume that compares.
Our weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're punching way above our weight.
Yeah, I thought so. I just wanted to confirm it as it relative to other states. Okay, thank you.
We can have further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you.
Are y'all ready for Accelerate to go now? All right, we'll
we're-
just slide right into it. So, Chairman Frazier Committee, thank you for your time today. I'm Courtney Taylor, the Executive Director of Accelerate Mississippi. I have provided you with our annual report for fiscal year 2024. In front of you, it's behind this is just a single page budget ask, not multiple pages. So you're good there. But this is a report we put out every October detailing the year before. Happy to talk in greater detail about the things you see in that report as you all have a chance to review it. Just a quick update on kind of the big picture items in our office. We operate an organization called or a division called Talent Solutions, where we partner with MDA, local economic developers, to support new and expanding jobs and serve effectively as a SWAT team for these companies that will only do this once, whereas we will do it many times year over year. We operate the Career Coach program. We have 203 career coaches across the state of Mississippi, which the last information I have is that satisfies the request that we have for career coaches. We are not currently asking for an increase in career coaches. We have started awarding that on a 2-year basis. That way our partners can kind of plan a little bit better. So if there's a need though, and someone sees a need, we're happy to support that. We also operate the Mississippi Works Fund, the Workforce Enhancement Training Fund, and the Equip Mississippi, which is the name we gave to the K-12 grant program that we operate equipment money to high schools. We also, until December of 2026, have ARPA funding. So just high-level overview of the programs that we operate. Functionally, we also set the SWIB credential list in partnership with the SWIB, obviously, and conduct the return on investment annual study for career technical education. This budget year, we are requesting a total of $5.3 million for office operations and data system support to continue to align the workforce development system, provide career coaches across Mississippi, support company expansion and establishment, and provide grants to support overall training in Mississippi. Just going down the budget list, we've requested a total of $3.1 million to address increases in PERS, healthcare, unemployment, all the things. Add 2 new positions, a communications specialist and a database specialist, a couple of cost of living raises, and to transition some lower level roles into project manager roles to more effectively staff the office. We will transition 1 employee who is currently paid out of a federal grant to state funds. So this has been a couple of years of this employee. And this will allow us to have the appropriate capacity to handle the projects that we have on the books. For travel, we have kept our request. You'll see that we had our FY25 budget. We have our original request that we submitted a year ago almost for this year. And then we have our adjusted request. So it's a little bit lower than our anticipated request because we've just gotten a little bit more detailed and we see things and how they're coming out on what we actually need. Travel, we're keeping steady, level funding at $200,000. Contractual services, these are anticipated costs primarily to operate the office, to provide the required leadership for the workforce system. It also includes the cost of contracting for the ROI study, our internal auditor, and the ability to manage some of these award processes. A portion represents funds utilized to support talent solutions and our training providers, where we need to be able to move more quickly than you can in a normal grant. Commodities, level funding requested there supports office necessities, equipment, traditional equipment needs for staff, computers, docking stations, printers, things like that. Level funding requested there. In the subsidies, loans, and grants line item, you'll see we're not requesting an increase in career coach funding, as I said, but we do request level funding for FY26 for career coaches. And we are requesting an additional $500,000 to the CRM FTS line. Last year, you all thankfully gave us $1.5 million to invest in a uniform data management system, which that work is ongoing right now. The $500,000 is requested to just enhance user experience, be able to pull better reports, easier for the people who have to use the system. It does what we need it to do right now, but it is a technology system that can sometimes be a little bit clunky. So just to finesse that. And that is the basics. I'm not requesting the JMG funding. We didn't request it last year, but it was in the budget. I'm not requesting that for next year. So that's high level, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question, may just reflect on what the senator to my left has said before. When he was chair of workforce development, I think it's when the accelerator stood up, and I think you've been there from the beginning with it. I just want to commend his leadership and what you guys have done on this. It's just you just knocked it out of the park with it. I try to interact in my district with the career coaches and meet them and talk to them, and just the direct we've got at a grassroots level, or the effect you have at a grassroots level has been really phenomenal with all that. Are y'all looking to pivot to the technology question? Surprise, surprise. There are a lot of emerging technologies that seem to be right on the forefront with workforce training. Do y'all look at those and are trying to educate or push those like VR and things of that nature from a standpoint? Or is that in this purview, if you will?
Speaking very frankly, as I think you're probably accustomed to, I'm trying to stay out of the methodologies and how the educators
Yes,
at this time.
Thought I might be crossing over.
It can get a little bit dicey with people requesting statewide contracts. I think our training partners, our community colleges, universities, they're very up on the game. And so we haven't dove off into that yet, as we've been focused more primarily on getting the program stood up and operating effectively, but
That's
happy
correct.
to look at that as we move
I
forward.
just think as we go forward, just to be very cognitive of these emerging technologies are coming on, you know, the word AI. It's coming, and where we're headed with it is going to, you know, it's transformative in a very good way. So
Yes, sir.
thank you again. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you. Senator Parker.
Thank you, Courtney. And I just want to say, I think you were the excellent replacement for Ryan. You know, I think we both still miss Ryan,
Very
but I have been very pleased with the success and the work you've done. I just want to, just kind of say that publicly. You mentioned a couple of things here on your ecosystem coordinators. I don't think you mentioned that. I think at one time you were set up to try to have for each ecosystem, like a 1 and a 2 right there. How are you on staffing that right now? And have you got those positions filled?
So we moved away from just for everybody's sake, we had 10 ecosystem coordinators when we first started. It was a lot, and frankly, more than we needed in that capacity. So we have reduced those numbers. And what we have done is we still have 5 coordinators living outside of the region, but we have now doubled down, and they all have formal responsibilities with wet and work. So they're experts. They're the entry point to the office at this point. But it was, I think, in my opinion, and I'm biased obviously because I did it, but I think it's right size now where we have just the right amount of people, and they are handling the funding, the communication with the funding, and they're learning that piece too. But I think it's better. But yes, sir, I think we're good there, and we're working to elevate some of it over to full project management, so they have ownership of the projects, and to smooth communication and enhance how fast we can move.
And have you been able to use your staff? I know every time we have a big project that comes in, and we put some more burden on you, have you been able to effectively use your staff in those positions you've needed to
Yes, sir.
fill those obligations?
Yes, sir. Thankfully, the Poppy, the biggest project that
Right.
we've worked with, you all gave us some funding for that. So we've hired some people through that funding, or a person through that funding, which is working out really well. If we have a couple of really big projects fall, we'll need some additional people. My big focus right now is refining the internal operations to make sure we're handling the business that we've already got. But right now, I think we're pretty good.
And I know at one time we worked on getting you the proper space that you needed.
Yes, sir.
Under DFA, I think is still kind of your lead as far as the space and.
We handle that
part
through
of
our
it.
contractual too, so that's included in our budget.
And you're in a good spot and
Yes,
have what
sir.
you need there.
We
I
have
just want
great space, actually, so it's been nice.
I just want to go back to this point too, is, I've always seen workforce as being so key that if we don't have the proper workforce, we're not going to be able to get MDEA to lure projects in here.
Right.
And so we worked hard to try to get you to come alongside with MDA, so that you're working with them, not surprised by the project, but, with the confidentiality agreements,
Yes,
able
sir.
to do what you need to. Have you found that that relationship has been good?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as we do look at, more career coach recommendations for adults, I just want you to, with your team, express some of the challenges from before in some of these arenas and how we want to have a unified kind of vision and approach on this. Because I do think the career coach is one of the best things that we've done, and if we are going to make another investment in that in the adult community, just me personally, I see your office as the lead on that.
Yes, sir.
But thanks for being here.
Yes, sir. And tactically, we're happy to handle that however you all see fit. I think it would be beneficial. I've worked on a white paper of sorts. One of the things that we've identified is we have our career coaches, there are other career coaches, but then there are people who are not formally called career coaches who are doing career coaching. So we're working on creating a standard for this is what career coaching means in Mississippi beyond the program that you all are funding.
Right.
Is there
And we
other
have
outside-
people who are getting block grants for things sometimes
Yes, sir.
who appear to be doing career coaching, but are not doing career coaching. And that's a different topic.
There are 13 federal agencies funding anything related to quote workforce, so it can get a little bit messy.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Further questions? Thank you very much. Very good job.
Thank y'all for your time. Drink all the coffee.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Report.